Hello there everyone and welcome to another Warhammer 40k lore video. As we're approaching Halloween, I thought it was appropriate to cover one of the most sinister creatures that exist, if we can even call them creatures. The Flayed Ones are deranged automatons that flay their victims alive and cover themselves with their blood-drenched skin. They are Necron shock troops that sow panic and terror in the ranks of the enemy with their gruesome appearance, taking advantage of the initial shock to mercilessly dismember them with their razor-sharp claws. However, the Flayed Ones are rejected by the rest of the Necrons because they have completely lost their minds and carry a highly contagious dimensional virus. But before we spoil everything here, let's go all the way back to the War in Heaven to see how the Flayed Ones first came to be. During the War in Heaven, the Necrons turned against their Dark Khatan masters through a series of titanic battles and unparalleled displays of destruction. However, the Khatan, being powerful eldritch entities, were incredibly difficult to destroy, and the vast majority of them were merely shattered and subdued. Although we do know of one Khatan in particular that the Necrons were able to permanently slay, Llandu'Gor, also known as the Flayer. It is speculated that the Mynarch dynasty somehow were able to destroy it completely. We don't know what kind of weapons they used, but they must have been very powerful indeed. Yet with his last breath, Llandu'Gor cursed the entire Necron species with the following words.
To those who have turned their faces away, to those who are faithless and wretched in their jealousies, to those who have denied us, to those who have denied me, I will wreak vengeance. I will wrench your souls and break your bones. I will cast hunger through your accursed existence. Down the eons, you will not forget. I will grant you this gift from love turned aside and make you like me. Break you in my image as you have broken me. I shall cast the fear of myself into you and all of your kind. I am Llandu'Gor. I am the hunger. I am the flayer. And from this moment, you shall be too.
And so, with these final words, Llandu'Gor cursed his killers with the Flayer virus. For millennia the curse went unnoticed, but when the symptoms began to manifest, the infected had already spread throughout the Necron Empire, infecting countless other Necrons with the Flayer virus. It's called a virus since the curse literally acts as a virus that little by little takes control of the Necron host until it turns it into a twisted thing more similar to the Flayer. This curse/virus spreads through contact with the infected's necrodermis, passing the curse on to any unfortunate Necron that has had contact with the Flayed One or a Necron infected with the Flayer virus. But I hear you ask, what are the symptoms of this curse? Infected Necrons, even those devoid of any awareness such as Necron warriors, will begin to descend down a spiral of madness as their sanity is slowly eroded. First, despite being soulless machines, they will begin to revel in the most bloody and gory deaths of their enemies, and will also start to feel a compulsion to take bloody trophies in the form of skin, sinew and bones that they will often wear on their metallic forms and not discard them until they rot completely and turn to dust. As the infection develops, they will begin to feel the ravenous hunger to devour the flesh of their enemies, the same insatiable hunger of Llandu'Gor. However, being machines, it's impossible for them to consume anything at all, and their deep hunger will wear away their minds until they're completely driven insane, going so far as to smear the flesh of their victims on their sealed metallic mouths in futile attempts to satiate the inner void that consumes them. Then their necrodermis will gradually transform until they attain the distinctive form of the Flayed Ones. Their fingers will sprout long and sharp blades perfect for skinning and dismembering their victims to then dress their flesh, and their legs will grow an additional joint, allowing them to move on all fours like some kind of mechanical monstrosity. Right before losing themselves completely to the virus, the infected will hear the last words of Llandu'Gor in their minds, which will doom them for eternity. Once the transformation is complete, the Flayed Ones will mysteriously disappear, driven by an unknown instinct that takes them to a particular pocket dimension of their own. This nightmare dimension is where the Flayed Ones return to after battle with their trophies, which they use to build mansions and palaces of flesh in worship of Llandu'Gor. This is a dimension full of buildings out of the most twisted nightmares, composed of flesh and body parts from different species in perpetual decay, only renewed when the Flayed Ones bring fresh meat to their twisted realm. Little is known about this mysterious Flayer dimension, but it seems to allow Flayed Ones to materialize in any point of real space to join their kin in battle, and once their bloody deed is done, they disappear back to their realm as swiftly as they came. Other Necrons despise and fear the Flayed Ones equally as they fear being infected by the curse. Necrons that are suspected to have been infected with the virus are immediately destroyed to contain the infection, although Necron lords can't always avoid the presence of Flayed Ones, since it seems that from their strange dimension, Flayed Ones are able to detect when the Necrons are in battle and can manifest from their parallel dimension at any point on the battlefield, preferably as close to the enemy as possible in search of fresh meat. Thus, the Flayed Ones function as a formidable assault force that sows terror and panic in the enemy, carrying rotting flesh of their previous victims on their twisted forms, or perhaps the mutilated limbs and blood-stained skins of another platoon they have just slaughtered, dressing their twisted metallic forms with the faces of the comrades and friends of those who will become their next victims. However, despite being very effective in close combat, Flayed Ones are not reliable forces, because, as I've mentioned before, they are completely deranged and only seek to satiate their infinite hunger and skin their victims to take more trophies of flesh. So no, they likely won't be obeying any order, and they don't have any sense of strategy, although they aren't completely suicidal. If they see that they are completely outmatched by the enemy, they will wait until the perfect moment to launch an ambush, and if their enemies flee from battle, instead of taking advantage to hunt them down and decimate their numbers, they will linger and try to consume the remains of their most recent victims. Necron lords don't usually count on the intervention of Flayed Ones in their battle plans, but if they were to appear unexpectedly, they will accept the advantage they can give them, and after achieving victory, they will try to destroy them completely to avoid exposing their forces to the infection. Although, like all Necrons, Flayed Ones are not easy to destroy. Those Flayed Ones that have not been destroyed, after mutilating and flaying their victims' bodies and taking new flesh trophies, they'll disappear back to their twisted dimension, carrying new contributions for their palaces of decaying flesh. Although the vast majority of Flayed Ones have lost their minds completely and only seek gory trophies, there are some who have managed to retain part of their minds. A good example of high-ranking Necrons with the Flayer virus is in the Minarch dynasty, since, as they are supposedly the executioners of Llandu'Gor, they were the first Necrons to contract the virus and have the largest number of Flayed Ones in their ranks. It is said that the leaders of this dynasty retained their consciousness despite being cursed, but now instead are ruled by a malignant rage and hunger that writhes within them almost with a life of its own, making the Minarch the most malicious and wrathful of all Necron dynasties. Despite the fact that the vast majority of Flayed Ones dwell in their own dimension, there are some kingdoms in the material realm ruled by so-called Flayer kings, who have also retained much of their personality and minds intact. A good example of this is Satar the Enfleshed, whose subjects have fallen prey to the curse, and he is the only one within his kingdom, and he is the only one with the mind to appreciate how doomed they truly are, all but helpless to see his kingdom slowly slip away into madness. Another good example of these Flayed One kingdoms is in the Ghoul Stars, which besides being home to various cosmic horrors, it is also the location of the Bone Kingdom of Drazak. Drazark is a Necron tomb world where Flayed Ones lurk in desolate streets, fighting each other for the last scraps of rotting flesh and bone shards to satiate their twisted appetites. There is only one in all of Drazark who remains apparently sane, Vagul, also known to the rest of the Necrons as the Fallen Lord. Vagul rules the realm of Drazark from a throne of bone and skin, trying to maintain what little order he can. The Fallen Lord seems to be free of the curse, at least superficially, although no Necron Lord in his right mind would keep himself surrounded by these blood-maddened flayers. Vagul doesn't maintain his reign through any kind of mandate, for his subjects have completely lost their minds and are only interested in satisfying their eternal hunger. So to maintain his position, when meat is scarce and only tiny scraps of rotting flesh and bone fragments remain for the Flayed Ones to fight over, Vagul declares a time of bounty, sending his fleets to raid nearby worlds, not in search of riches, territories or spoils of war, but to bring back more gory flesh for his Flayed Ones. In short, these are the Flayed Ones. Nightmarish metallic abominations whose eternal hunger condemns them to madness in search of more fresh meat that they will never be able to consume. Llandu'Gor's vengeance continues to plague the Necrons even to this day, turning them into these twisted and deranged things. Quoting the Silent King, "Though our individual afflictions may take different forms, sooner or later we will all be lost to madness." And well, there you have it. The Flayed Ones, one of the most horrifying things in all Warhammer 40k. Granted, there are much worse things in this galaxy full of horrors, but there is nothing like the terror of being ambushed by a squad of Flayed Ones covered with the blood-drenched skin of your fellow soldiers, while they dismember and flay your squad amid screams of panic and true terror. If you like the video, you know the drill. Give it a like, subscribe for more content, and leave a comment with your thoughts to help the channel grow. As always, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll meet again in the next video.